Welcome to this YouTube channel. In this video we are going to talk about top 10 facts about the Achaemenid Empire. So before starting this video, like this video, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for future updates. The Achaemenid Empire, often known as the First Persian Empire, was an ancient Iranian empire founded by King Cyrus the Great in Western Asia. King Xerxes I, who conquered most of northern and central Greece, including Athens, in 480 BC, brought the empire to its pinnacle. The empire spanned from the Balkans and Eastern Europe to the Indus Valley in the east at its peak. With a total area of 5.5 million square kilometers, the empire was greater than any other in history, 2.1 million square miles. Here are 10 interesting facts about the Achaemenid Empire.
Number 10. The Achaemenid Empire is known for imposing a successful model of centralized, bureaucratic administration through the use of satraps, its multicultural policy, the construction of infrastructure such as roads and a postal system, the use of an official language across its territories, and the development of civil services, including the possession of a large professional army.
The empire's prosperity led to the adoption of similar systems by subsequent empires. By 330 BC, Alexander the Great, a fervent admirer of Cyrus the Great, had captured most of the empire. After Alexander's death, the Ptolemaic kingdom and the Seleucid Empire took control of most of the empire's former territory. Under the Parthian Empire, the Iranian elites of the Central Plateau reclaimed control by the 2nd century BC. Number 9. Nomadic Persians founded the Achaemenid Empire. The Persians were an Iranian people who arrived in what is now Iran around 1000 BC, and coexisted with the native Elamites in a territory that included northwestern Iran, the Zagros Mountains, and Persis. They were ruled for centuries by the Neo-Assyrian Empire, 911 to 609 BC, which was centered in northern Mesopotamia. In the western Iranian Plateau, the Persians were initially nomadic pastoralists. The Medes, another group of Iranian peoples, founded a short-lived empire, and played a key role in the fall of the Assyrians, hence the Achaemenid state was not the first Iranian empire. Number 8. The Achaemenids were originally rulers of Anshan, an Elamite city near modern-day Mavdasht. The title, King of Anshan, was derived from the older Elamite title, King of Susa and Anshan. The identities of the first kings of Anshan are subject to debate. The kings of Anshan were Tspes, Cyrus I, Cyrus I, and Cyrus II, also known as Cyrus the Great, according to the Cyrus Cylinder, the oldest extant genealogy of the Achaemenids. The later Behistun inscription, written by Darius the Great, claims that Tspes was the son of Achaemenes, and that Darius is also descended from Tspes through a different line, but no earlier texts mention Achaemenes. Cyrus the Great was the son of Cambyses I and Mandane of Media, the daughter of Astyages, the ruler of the Median Empire, according to Herodotus' histories. Number 7. Darius also instituted a regulated and long-term tax system that was specifically geared to each satrapy's alleged production and economic potential. For example, Babylon was assessed for the greatest sum, and for an unusual mix of goods 1,000 silver talents and 4 months' worth of army rations. Egypt was to be the granary of the Persian Empire, as later of Rome, and was required to provide 120,000 measures of grain in addition to 700 talents of silver. India was clearly fabled for its gold. Egypt was known for the wealth of its crops. It was to be the granary of the Persian Empire, as later of Rome, and was required to provide 120,000 measures of grain in addition to 700 talents of silver. This was solely a levy imposed on the subjects. Conquered and/or rebellious adversaries may have been sold into slavery, according to evidence. The Achaemenids may have been the first government in the ancient Near East to register private slave purchases, and tax them using an early type of sales tax, in addition to their other administrative and taxing advances. Number 6. Trade was substantial under the Achaemenids, and there existed an efficient infrastructure that allowed the interchange of commodities throughout the empire. Tariffs on trade, coupled with agriculture and tribute, were the empire's main sources of revenue.
353 BC, letter from the satrap of Bactria to the governor of Culmi about camel caretakers. The satrapies were connected by a 2,500-kilometer route, with the royal road from Susa to Sardis, built under Darius I's direction, being the most magnificent portion.
At regular intervals, it featured stops and caravanserais. Mounted courier relays, the Angarium, could reach even the most remote places in 15 days. According to Herodotus, nothing in the world can match the speed of these Persian messengers. Despite the considerable local independence granted by the satrapy system, royal inspectors, the eyes and ears of the monarch, continue to complete their assigned rounds regardless of snow, rain, heat, or the blackness of night. Went on a tour around the empire, reporting on local conditions. Number 5. Despite its humble beginnings in Persia, the empire grew to great proportions under Cyrus the Great's leadership. Cyrus established a multi-state empire in which he appointed regional rulers, known as satraps, to reign as his proxy over a specific part of his empire known as the satrapy. The main system of government was founded on each satrapy's loyalty and devotion to the central power, or the king, as well as adherence to tax regulations. The creation of a professional army was necessary for both maintaining the peace and enforcing the king's authority in cases of rebellion and foreign threat. Due to the ethno-cultural diversity of the subject nations under Persia's rule, its enormous geographic size, and the constant struggle for power by regional competitors, Cyrus built a formidable ground force, which he used to advance in his battles in Babylonia, Lydia, and Asia Minor, and which was also employed by his son Cambyses II in Egypt against Psamtik III, after his death. Before he could establish a naval force, Cyrus would die fighting a local Iranian insurgency in the empire. That task would pass to Darius the Great, who would establish a royal fleet for the Persians, allowing them to fight their adversaries across the empire's many seas, from the Black Sea and the Aegean Sea to the Persian Gulf, Ionian Sea, and Mediterranean Sea. Number 4. The Achaemenid infantry consisted of 3 groups. The Immortals, Sparabara, and Takabra, while the Cardaces were introduced in the final years of the Achaemenid Empire. According to Herodotus, the Immortals were a strong infantry led by Haidans who were always kept at a strength of exactly 10,000 men. He said that the unit's name came from the practice of replacing every deceased, critically injured, or sick member with a new one in order to maintain the unit's numbers and coherence. Wicker shields, short spears, swords or huge daggers, and a bow and arrow were among their weapons. Scale armor coats were worn beneath their robes. The average soldier's spear counterbalances were silver, while the officer's spear butt spikes were golden to distinguish commanding ranks. The Immortals are depicted wearing lavish robes, hoop earrings, and gold jewelry on surviving Achaemenid-colored glazed bricks, and carved reliefs, albeit these costumes and accoutrements were most likely only worn on formal occasions. Number 3. The Achaemenids' cavalry horses, like most cavalry corps, were often equipped with scale armor. Riders wore wicker shields, short spears, swords or big daggers, bow and arrow, and scale armor coats, similar to infantry forces. The camel cavalry was unique in that the camels and riders were often given minimal protection from adversaries, but when they were equipped with spears, swords, bows, arrows, and scale armor. At the Battle of Thymbra, Cyrus the Great was the first to introduce camel cavalry into the Persian army. Following his conquest of the Indus Valley, Darius I most likely introduced the elephant into the Persian army. Although Darius and Xerxes I may have employed them in Greek operations, Greek chronicles only record 15 of them being employed at the Battle of Gaugamela. Number 2. The lie, drooge, was regarded a cardinal sin in Achaemenid Persia, and it was punishable by death in some extreme situations. Archaeologists unearthed tablets in Persepolis in the 1930s, which provide ample proof of the Achaemenid period's passion and devotion for the culture of truth. The names of ordinary Persians, mostly traders and warehouse keepers, are written on these tablets. According to Yale University's Stanley Insler, the word truth appears in 72 of the names of officials and petty clerks found on these tablets. Artapana, protector of truth; Artakama, lover of truth; Artamana, truth-conscious; Artafana, possessing splendor of truth; Artazusta, delighting in truth; Artistuna, pillar of truth; Artafrida, prospering the truth; and Artahanara, having nobility of truth, according to Insler. During his reign, Darius the Great established the Code of Excellent Rules. Cuneiform inscriptions bear witness to King Darius' ongoing war against deception. When the situation called for it, Achaemenid administration communications were written in Greek, which became a commonly used bureaucratic language. Despite the fact that the Achaemenids had significant interactions with the Greeks, and had conquered several Greek-speaking areas in Europe and Asia Minor at various times during their empire, there is little sign of Greek linguistic evidence in the local Old Iranian sources. However, there is ample evidence, in addition to Herodotus' stories, that Greeks, in addition to being deployed and employed throughout the empire's core territories, also lived and worked in the Achaemenid Empire's heartland, namely Iran. Number 1. The Achaemenid Empire's religious tolerance has been called a unique trait.
According to the Old Testament, in 539 to 530 BC, King Cyrus the Great freed the Jews from Babylonian captivity, and allowed them to return to their homeland.
Cyrus the Great aided in the repair of several towns' sacred sanctuaries. Zoroastrianism reached southwestern Iran during the Achaemenid dynasty, where it was adopted by the kings and became a defining aspect of Persian culture via them. The religion not only formalized the traditional Iranian pantheon's conceptions and divinities, but also included some original notions, notably the concept of free choice. Zoroastrianism spread throughout the empire under the patronage of the Achaemenid emperors, and by the 5th century BC, it had become the de facto state religion. What do you think about this video? Do let us know down in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video and want to hear from us again, be sure to hit that subscribe button before you go.